We're going to go ahead and actually jump into the system that we've got set up. And we have our system Compligo set up for consumer finances. And right off the bat, the first thing that we'll notice is the login page. This is something that you can brand to make sure that it's going to be in line with your organization's logos, branding, etc., because you want to make sure that your employees feel comfortable, they know where they're going to be logging in. And now I'm inside of the system. So I'm now inside. You can see a couple of things. We'll take a look at navigation first. You'll see that we have the ability to see things like the different things that I have access to. This is very much an administrator's view. Your employees would only see, for example, the home screen with this inbox. I can see how I'm doing with this score up here. So I'm at 21%. I've got a little bit of work ahead of me. And then I can also see any of my direct reports. So I can manage my team by looking at this score and opening this up. If I open this up, this shows me all the individuals that are currently reporting into me, where they're at, and so forth. And I can even drill down a little bit further. Let's take a look at Brian, since he's here online with me, and see how he's doing, and see where he's at. So you can see, for example, anything past due, anything that's in progress, and things that are recently completed. So I can get at this type of information at any time about my team, and that really takes the onus off of compliance managers and HR representatives that normally are charged with chasing people down to make sure that they're in compliance, and pushes this downstream to the management level, the people that are actually working with those individuals on a daily basis and have the highest degree of contact, so that those individuals can then make sure that their direct reports are in compliance. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the content that we have here. We've got a number of different things in here, and again, we've taken very much an email approach to the system. And that's basically because we want to make sure that your employees do not have any barriers to compliance. So if you have a complicated system where there's a bunch of navigation to get through to get to the information that they need to certify on, chances are at some point there's going to be an abandonment of that whole activity, and they're going to go back to do their regular jobs. So by providing this, there's very little training. They can simply come in, work through their activities, and then move through these and move on with their day. So for example, let me just show you the Truth in Lending Act Regulation Z policy that we have here. If I open this up, you'll see the policy comes up. I can review this policy very easily, and then when I get to the bottom down here, I can go ahead and check this box, enter my password, and if I've typed my password incorrectly, this will go ahead and complete that. Now, this password is very important because each one of your employees is going to have the opportunity when they log into the system to create a unique password. And that will function in two different ways. It's going to allow them to actually access the system as we've seen at the login screen, but this is also going to be their digital signature. So you can see here's the password as your e-signature. I've got it typed in here, and when I click complete, this will go ahead and signify that I've signed off on that policy. Now, that's pretty much all there is to it. We have different types of content in here, and Brian and I can line up a separate meeting offline if you really want to drill down and see some of the content that we have, but a lot of it's very much along the, you can see here, the interactive policies or online trainings that we have. Other things that we can provide are content that you're providing. You can see that we've got some of the NADA information right here. This is all content we can license to you, as well as the other types of things that you're normally going to see in a consumer finance-related compliance program. Now, what's not on the screen are some of the forms that we can also fill out. So if you needed to have forms that your employees could fill out, so if they wanted to report an incident, maybe a data security breach or something of that nature, we can provide those types of forms where they can input that, and that information is going to go ahead and be provided outwardly. Now, let's go ahead and talk about, for example, the certification part. We talked about that in the beginning. So the certification is going to be very easy to get to here. So if I go to the personnel file, and I'm just going to pull mine up, for example. So I'm pulling up my own file, and as a manager, you're able to go ahead and pull up your employee's file. As an HR or an administrator of the system that you would have inside your office, you'd be able to have access to all of your employees. But I can very quickly click on Filed Activities, Here's that Truth in Lending Act and Regulation Z policy that I swore that I had read. You can see the process. I've signed off on it. You can see that it was created on this date, and on this date it was due, so I'm a little bit overdue, and then you can see here on March 7th I've actually completed that. Now that's great, but the defensible proof comes in here when we click this View button. This is that certification. Now I can print this out as an employee and have this in maybe a manila folder if I wanted to, but more importantly for the administrators of the system, this is again going to be your defensible proof. So if anybody ever challenges you on whether or not I had completed this and I read and attested to this, you can pull this up very quickly. The other part of it too is that you get a full copy of the language that I read at this point in time. So this language is going to be frozen with this record that I'd signed off on because, as everybody on the phone knows, regulations change, company policies and procedures are going to change, and you want to be able to make sure that if there's a question about what I looked at back on March 7th at 10:13 a.m., that you can tie back to that individual copy. So this will always be out there for every one of your employees, for every activity they do, so that you have that defensible proof as part of that certification process. Now, we also talked about getting into monitoring the system on an ongoing basis. And a lot of that monitoring can take place through these team scores that we were looking at a little bit earlier. But we also have a full suite of reports, starting off with our executive dashboard, where you can see things like the overall organization compliance. So this is how the organization is doing as a whole. You can also see the fully compliant users. So these are the individuals that have finished everything in their inbox. And then you can start seeing a breakdown by different departments, by supervisor levels, by the initiatives that I'm sending out, as well as some of the larger compliance workspaces that I have. These names across the bottom are things that we've entered as a demonstration. Your system that you would have would inherit the department names and the supervisor names that you would have, and they can be as many as you'd like, as well as by location. So you can see down here I've got this broken down into multiple locations across a pretty large geographic spread. And if I ever want to get at any of the data behind these charts that we see here, I can simply, for example, open up the San Francisco piece and see how people are doing in that office. And I can see, for example, Rick right here is at 0 compliance, so I'd want to either talk to him directly or have his manager counsel him to try to bring him into compliance. So that's one way to get into it. The other thing that we have, again, with the reports, and this gets more into the position of being audit ready, is a set of reports right here under the report selection. So we'll take a look at 2. Most of these reports will pretty much take care of everything that you need. These are reports that we've developed based on feedback from our client base. But if there's something that's not here, we can also build you a custom report that you can run on an ad hoc basis and then download that into Excel or have that emailed out to stakeholders on a periodic basis. Now, the one we'll take a look at first is the activity. So this is everything that I've sent out through Compligo over the time. So you can see, for example, here are the items that are not started, in process, completed. If I look for example, the not started, you can see here's one that might be a thing that I want to worry about. I've got this one that I sent out where the Fair Credit Reporting Act Permissible Purpose Interactive Training was distributed to 20 people. Nobody has started it. Nobody has this in process, and no one's completed it. So this would be a very quick red flag that I'd want to drill into this, trying to figure out what's going on. And if I ever want to see those individuals that I sent that to, I can simply click on that number, and that's going to open this up so that I can see, for example, what's going on with this. These are all the individuals that are behind that. Very easy to use. Now, the other part that we have, for example, down here is user compliance. And if I open this up, this will show me all of my employees. Here are their compliance scores, so I can very quickly find my rock stars. I can also sort it again to find the people that are less than perfect. So I can see, for example, David Knotts up here has been given 14. He hasn't completed any of them with a completion of 0. So this would be somebody I'd want to go ahead and investigate if I wanted to look at this. Now, the way that we've been looking at the compliance reporting right now has been very much from a diagnostics perspective. So if you had curiosity, you wanted to see how the program is doing, this would be the way that you would go about doing it. The other side of that would be that the system's actually reminding these individuals to get out there and complete their activities on a periodic basis. So that's being sent from these systems.